Welcome to this video where we will be looking at kick drum design for a house track. This is going to be video 1 of 6 where we'll go over all the elements and instrumentation kind of needed or required to build a kind of 80s classic house tune. So on the screen you can see a screen grab of the waveform for the kick we'll be building in this video, and I've drawn over it or overlaid over it some an envelope essentially. So with kick drums in house music, they're normally have a very short attack, a very clicky. This is the A here. It's proportionally quite short compared to the overall sound. And in reality, the actual attack time on this is probably this first peak, but just so I can show simply on here, I've drawn a little bit over, third peak over. And then we have, as soon as it starts to lose volume, we move into the decay stage of the sound. Arguably, there is a third stage, which is the release, which would be after it stopped decaying, the time that it takes to completely go to 0 decibels. In house music you don't really hear that because there'd usually be a rolling bass line alongside the kick drum that would cover up any release stage in the audio. So with that kind of out of the way, if we jump into a audio example, I will leave a link to the track in the description. You'll be able to hear the kind of sounds that we're going to be aiming for in this tutorial. So as you can hear, it's quite a short, punchy, but relatively low kick drum. Back in the day they would have been using 808s or samples of 808s, maybe a bit later with the samples. Definitely in the early days it would have just been the drum box. It's also important to realize that a lot of this house music, or the people that are making this house music, were coming out of the disco scene or the late disco scene. So they're drawing inspiration from disco drum kits. So it was very sparse instrumentation, and you had to control a lot of the low end because you had a big dominant bass line. We'll get onto that in the next video, but it's worth mentioning when we're looking at this kick drum. So if we bring up the this Punchbox, and I'm going to initialize the patch here, and we're going to start off with a sine generator, which is what the 808 drum box actually used to generate its sounds. And I'm going to bring up a little oscilloscope here so that you can see what's going on. So initially we're going to set this attack a little bit. Well, let's get some audio going quickly. So as you can hear and see, this isn't the shape that we had on screen before, so we're going to start adjusting some settings here, and also adding some other sounds in on top of it to accentuate some elements. So first of all, there is no what they call hold or sustain. We're just worried about the attack and the decay stages. We're going to bring the attack up, down a little bit, sorry, and we're going to make the decay a little bit longer. Now on the 808 originally, as you can see here, you just had this tone, with this sine generator, it's split into the frequency that it starts at and sweeps down to in the decay, and how long it takes. So we can adjust this down a little bit, and then bring the end frequency, which is kind of the body of the drum, and then we can bring this attack tone up. And then we've got some what they call curves. Now this is essentially wave shaping for the three different elements, and if I mess around with these, you'll hear what they're affecting, but it's essentially a single stage envelope applied to each element of the sound. So that's pretty good for a kind of the body of the sound that we're aiming for. Now I'm going to bring in a couple of these other elements here. These are additional samples that you can layer in on top of the this is generated. This is like a synthesized sine, and these will be samples or recorded sounds that you can layer on top to accentuate certain elements. So for our attack portion, we're going to use the if I can find it, the where are you? Here we go. We're going to use this sound here, and as you can hear, it's a bit loud in the layering, but that's okay for the minute because we need to hear it to be able to adjust the settings. So we want quite a high pitched or a high tuned sound for our attack, but then we're going to roll off some of the low end. And we also want it to be mono. And now that we've got that set up, we can bring the decay down because we just want it to be very short. And now we can take it all the way down and bring it up in the mix until it starts to be apparent but not stick its nose out too much. Somewhere there is about good. So if I bring this in and out, you should be able to hear the difference. And now we're going to do a similar thing with what they call the tops, but I'm going to add this as it's a little bit of interest in the decay or the body of the drum. And the sound we're going to use here is this Build a House 3, and again it's going to be very prominent in the mix, but we're going to mess around with it and then bring it up like we did with the previous sound. So again, we're going to tune it up. We're going to bring the decay down a little bit. We're going to take out a little bit of the high end and a little bit of the low end. We're also going to mono it, and then we're going to bring it into the mix. Now if I bring the volume up and bring that in and out, you should be able to hear the effect. Now the last thing we need to do to, well, this is a bit of taste, but to add a bit of character to this otherwise quite pristine sound, I'm going to bit crush it down to 16 bits and bring the preamp up a tad, just to drive a little bit of interest into the sound. So again, if I bring the volume up and then bring that in and out, you should be able to hear a bit of difference. And yes, there is a slight volume difference, but that's intended. Last thing to do is just add a little bit of high end with an equalizer to allow it to stick out in a mix and cut through a little bit better. And we're left with this. And as you can see on the oscilloscope here, the shape we've ended up with is a lot closer to the drawing at the beginning of the video. So if we now A/B this against the example, so if you listen closely on the original, there's a little bit of reverb. Now I'm not sure how they recorded this song. It might have been a matter of playing it back out of a speaker and having a microphone in front of the speaker. A lot of this stuff was done in bedrooms in the 80s, and who knows how you got this sound. But for conversation's sake, let's bring up a bright room reverb and see if we can add that ambience. So I was just chasing that high end a little bit. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get it with these settings, but certainly that's something you could get correct in the mix just by boosting and EQing. But you know, this isn't about cloning an existing sound. This is about how to emulate a authentic sound. So thank you guys for watching. I hope this explains a little bit about kick design and using sine waves to do that, along with a couple of samples. But you know, it's you can easily build quite a realistic kick drum with a couple of very simple samples and a sine wave generator. I will leave the link to the song that I've used as an example in the description, and also I will sample this kick that we've built for you to use in your own songs. Cool. Next time we'll be looking at bass design and how to write a simplistic looping bass line.